Hi, everyone. Welcome to Rams Insider. This week, we were talking to my brother from a different mother, Joe Trahan from WFAA in Dallas. We've hung out at plenty of basketball games together, Mavs and Lakers. But this week, Cowboys and Rams, you guys are 3-1 after stumbling in that opener. Is it legit? Is that a 3-win team that's rolling? What do you think?
Well, listen, Curt, first of all, it's good to see you, brother, always. Thanks for having me on. And yeah, we do go a ways back. We've been doing this for a while now, bro, you know? But listen, it's defense, Curt, and it's real. And it's the type of defensive play that Dallas fans aren't used to seeing, that the NFL is not used to seeing out of this franchise. Dan Quinn has these guys geared up. He's got them dialed up, man. And it's one of those things that it can be a foundation for a really good football team.
You know, Joe, it's interesting you say defense because some of the Rams coaching staff are always saying stats are for losers, stats are for losers. But we all know it is a barometer for how teams are doing, and some stats clearly matter. So when statistically speaking, when I look at the Dallas defense, they're middle of the road in passing and even worse in running, but it's a scoring league. And they're only giving up 15.5 points a game, third in the league. Bridge that gap for us, Joe.
So, think about Dan Quinn, right? This is what
Right.
Dan Quinn does. You know, if you get some yards in between the 20s, he's fine with that. But listen, you better believe once you start getting around the 30 or 40-yard line, he's going to start heating you up, and you're going to have to earn those touchdowns. And I think his point is if he holds teams to field goals, by and large, they're going to win. The Cowboys have only allowed 4 touchdowns so far this season. They haven't started a season this stingy in terms of touchdowns since 1972 with this franchise. We're talking about 50 years.
Wow.
Listen, they haven't given up 20 points yet. First 4 games. Haven't done that since 1973. Curt, we're going back to the doomsday defenses, and you know what that means around here. It resonates. It's real. But I do think you got to go back to the way that Dan Quinn, he looks at the task in a certain way. And there are some times, when they might give up a big play. There are a few running plays that got broken on them last week by the Commanders, but he's fine with that because he knows, listen, once you come into my territory, once you start getting in the, in the red and the green zone, he's going to heat you up and you better be ready to play.
Well, certainly the Rams have a great defensive player, several of them, but including an Aaron Donald. But Micah Parsons is really, I think, the next defensive player of the year, whether it's this year or a year or two down the road. We don't see him every week. You do. Tell us why Micah Parsons is so special.
He's that rare breed. Incredibly talented, as you can see, physically gifted, but it's more than that because he's got that uncommon motor. And you think about what he did, right? He was the defensive rookie of the year, right? And had all these accolades, and people were kind of tabbing him as the next thing. And what he did in the offseason was he went back and he got to work. He kept chopping wood. He didn't rest on his laurels at all. I wanted to see, they call it a sophomore slump. It's not a sophomore slump, as you know, Curt. It's the fact that this talented rookie didn't work hard enough in the offseason. It's not a slump.
Yeah.
It didn't work for it, right?
Yeah.
And he did. He did and more. And so that's the first thing that sets him apart. The next thing that sets him apart, Curt, his mentality, man, really off the charts. First of all, he's one of the best sound bites, and he was ever since a rookie. I mean, just a fantastic sound bite. But it's more than that because it's well thought out. Kid sounds like he's got an old soul, right?
Wow.
The things he comes up with, and he calls himself the Lion, and it's all kind of based on that lion mentality and the hunger that comes from that. And man, he just has a really good way of expressing himself, and I believe it. And listen, I've seen a bunch of these guys come through now. I've been doing it for 30 years. You can tell the ones that are real. And I said this after week 1. It's something I've never done in my 30-year career. I compared a defensive player to Lawrence Taylor.
Wow.
And I thought it was apt, and then, of course, Lawrence Taylor shows up at the game there, and Michael was sick and fighting the flu and everything and still trying to get out there and play. And he didn't have a great game, but he was very impactful still because that was the game when Tank Lawrence ends up with 3 sacks. And he's that guy. If he's not making the play, he's creating the play for another guy. And as you know, that's the dude. And Micah Parsons is that dude.
Well, if he's the lion, he's the king of the Cowboys jungle. That is for sure. We were talking to the run stopper for the Rams today, Bobby Wagner, which had a great hit on a fan, by the way.
Yes, he did.
That's a different story.
Yes.
But someone asked him about preparing for Cooper Rush versus Dak Prescott, and he's like, well, Dak's not going to play. Okay, is Dak not going to play, or should they be concerned?
No. So Dak is not going to play. It's the swelling that's not allowing him to grip the football. And Mike McCarthy says, listen, we need a full week of work for Dak to be back. But listen, he'll be lucky if he's back. He may not be back for the Eagles game, Curt, because he still is unable to throw the ball with full velocity. So we'll see. We'll see, but certainly not this week. You don't have to worry about Dak Prescott. It will be Cooper Rush at quarterback.
Well, so a guy from Central Michigan has led the Dallas Cowboys to 3 straight wins. I'm going to be honest, Joe. Week 2, I'm like, who is Cooper Rush? And I'm like going to the Wikipedia. I cover the Rams, not the Cowboys. Right. But why is he seems incredibly efficient? Why is it working with Cooper Rush?
Well, first of all, you have no reason to know Cooper Rush. You really don't. I mean, you have no reason to know Cooper Rush. He got that one Halloween weekend win against the Vikings last year. But, it's he is the epitome of even keel, right? Even after, he won the second game of the year, his first start of the year. I mean, he is the most non-plus guy you would ever meet. And I think it plays with that team, right? Because although he doesn't say a whole lot, he doesn't come off as an alpha male sort of personality. He knows the offense. He's been in it for 5 years now.
Right.
He's really good friends with Kellen Moore. So you got that guy who's a steadying force. And man, listen, it hasn't been spectacular, but it has been incredibly clutch because he's been in some of these fourth quarter situations where he's just made plays, man, when you weren't expecting him to do so. So it's interesting. I think he knows his role. I mean, I think that's really important, right? He knows his role. He knows he's the backup. He knows this is his opportunity, but he doesn't get too high for it, doesn't get too low for it. And listen, when the Cowboys are playing defense the way they are, and up until this last game when they were running the football the way they were, you and I might be able to take a snap or two. You still move the football.
Joe, let's not go that far. Okay?
No, you're right.
I know what you're saying. You haven't seen my drop back skills. They're not there. Joe Trahan, WFAA from Dallas. He is the main sports anchor, folks. If you're in Dallas at our ABC affiliate, you mentioned Mike McCarthy, 3rd year now. He's battled through COVID, had that year off. We know expectations in Dallas are through the roof. It's every year it's Super Bowl or bust, and it's been a while. But specifically for Mike McCarthy, what's the vibe? What's the feeling?
Listen, with anyone who's not in that locker room with Mike, it's an uphill battle. It just is, because last year in the first half of the season, the Cowboys certainly looked like not only a contender, there were a few weeks there where they had favorite status, as you know. Like, okay, they had it going, they rip off 6 wins, or it started the season 6-1, and people were like, okay, this Cowboys team is for real. And then teams figured out that offense, and it went the wrong way, and it went the wrong way quick. And the problem, especially here in Dallas, was it was week after week after week, Curt, that we saw teams doing the exact same thing. They were zoning up the Cowboys, playing that too high safety look, and they couldn't come up with the answers. And it soured people on Mike McCarthy. Hey, Mike, you're supposed to be an offensive coach.
Right.
If there's anyone who can, come up with a remedy for when this offense gets in a funk, it should be Mike McCarthy, right? Kellen Moore is still relatively young in his offensive coordinator career. So that's when you're supposed to step up and say, all right, let's do this, right? Nothing. It didn't happen. We kept seeing it looked like the same bad movie over and over again, and people really soured on Mike McCarthy. I think there were a lot of people in this area who wanted Sean Payton as the next Cowboys coach. I covered the Saints way back when. I've been here 20 years, but before that, I covered the Saints, and so I know a lot of people who know Sean Payton well, and and I still keep close tabs with that team. And listen, I was one of those people.
Yeah, I understand.
Yeah, if it's Peyton, it's Peyton. Now, coincidentally, I covered McCarthy when he worked with the Saints too. But it's just one of those things where this team is going to have to continue to achieve into the playoffs, Curt, before people are going to start giving McCarthy credit. And listen, I think it's got to be a protracted playoff run, and I think they got to get, if not to the NFC Championship, they got to get close.
And let's face it, the Eagles look pretty darn good right now in the division. Now, for me, you mentioned about that defense and only giving up 15.5 points. To me, that's really one of the keys to the game, because the Rams will go up and down the field and they can't get it in the end zone. They have Cooper Kupp and then they got Cooper Kupp and then they got Cooper Kupp.
Yeah.
and he's a rock star in every sense of the word. But Matthew Stafford from Highland Park
That's right.
he's got to find a way into the end zone. That's my key. What do you see? And it can be the same one. What do you see going into Sunday at SoFi Stadium? What do you see as a key or two to this game?
So it's two things. And for me, it both revolves up front on the offensive and defensive lines. First of all, I saw where the Rams gave up 7 sacks. I know that offensive line is decimated.
Yep.
Like you said, I don't cover the Rams every week. It's hard for me to figure out who's on your offensive line. It's like, all right, where are we now?
I mean, really.
Okay.
They're going to get Edwards back, but yeah, they've lost like 5 guys in 4 weeks.
Right.
And Whitworth to retirement.
Right. You don't think Micah Parsons and Tank Lawrence, Dorrance Armstrong, Quentin Bohanna, all these guys, Neville Gallimore, they're licking their chops, man. They saw together. They were all watching on Monday Night Football. They saw what was going on. So that's the first key. And then the second one is how will the Cowboys offensive line control Aaron Donald? How will they impede him from being the game wrecker that he can be? The one thing that Cooper Rush has not done so far, Curt, he hasn't had what I like to call the catastrophic turnover, the one that either leads directly to a touchdown or sets up a short field touchdown. He hasn't had that yet. He's only had 1 interception. He's really only been sacked twice in 100 or so dropbacks.
Wow, that's impressive.
Yes, that offensive line has protected him, and that's the other thing. But listen, I know Aaron Donald, and I know in 4 snaps he can wreck a game.
Yeah.
So can they stop him from doing that? Those are the 2 things I'll be watching closely.
That's awesome. All right, last question. We talked a little bit. Hey, the 90s were a gift from God for Cowboy fans, winning 3 Super Bowls. It's been a while. Like you said, we're not old, Joe. We're just not young. But we've been around long enough to know, hey, this is big doings. And
experienced.
I love it. Experience. Now, in my experience, in Los Angeles, it's Dodgers, Lakers right there. Then the Rams, USC. I assume in Big D, where you're sitting, it's Cowboys and Cowboys preseason, Cowboys draft, and then Cowboys off season, and then maybe the Dallas Mavericks, maybe. Is that close? And tell me, what is the vibe in that town in this Super Bowl or bust team and potential coach?
It's really interesting because the highs and lows seem to be just, really pronounced with this fan base now. And I can't tell you the swing of emotion and feeling, and as you said, vibe in this city between the night after that Bucks game and what it is now.
Wow.
It was as if family members were passing away after that first game, man, right? And now everybody's ready to have a party because I think they can see the makings of what can be a really stout football team. So it's really interesting though, because while I think everyone is riding high now because they got kicked in the teeth last year by Deebo Samuel and the 49ers, the way they did in the playoffs. I do think there are a lot of people kind of holding back. I'm not going to give you my heart. It's like that girl you really want to give your heart to. Nah, don't do it. Don't do it. Right? I think there are a lot of fans who are like that. They're cautiously optimistic is the best way to put it.
Well, I know you well enough. I know you give your heart to your wife and your 2 girls. So Joe, I love you, brother. I'm so happy how you've become the main sports guy there. And Joe and I have a lot of mutual friends. I hear nothing but great things from you, brother. But thanks for giving good folks out here in La La Land some insight to the Cowboys and Sunday's game. But just want to tell you thank you, Joe.
No, hey, Curt, I love you, man. I appreciate it. I'm headed out to LA. Can't wait to get out there. I love SoFi. I was there for the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I remember that.
Chance to see the stadium. So I can't wait to get back. I love the venue, and we'll see what that game holds. I think it'll be interesting.
Well, if you use my name, they'll go, who? All kidding aside, Joe, I'll see you in the press box Sunday.
All right, brother. See you then. Thanks.
Thank you.